Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. So, inshallah, in this lesson, we'll be analyzing the poem The Human Abstract. Uh, Let us first go through the poem. Pity would be no more if we did not make somebody poor, and mercy no more could be if all were as happy as we. And mutual fear brings peace till the selfish loves increase. Then cruelty knits a snare and spreads his baits with care. He sits down with holy fears and waters the ground with tears. Then humility takes its roots underneath his foot. Soon spreads the dismal shade of mystery over his head, and the caterpillar fly feed on the mystery. And it bears the fruit of deceit, ruddy and sweet to eat, and the raven his nest has made in its thickest shade. The gods of the earth and sea sought through nature to find this tree, but their search was all in vain. There grows one in the human brain. So, this poem explores how strict moral rules can actually create suffering. The speaker says that qualities like pity, mercy, peace, and love only exist because of negative conditions such as poverty, fear, and selfishness. जाहिर सी बात है अगर कोई पुअर होगा तो ही तो वी आर गोइंग टू हैव पिटी और मर्सी ओवर देम ओके सो अगर फियर होगा तो ही वी आर गोइंग टू हैव पीस एंड लव understood. So, in other words, these good values depend on the existence of bad situations. So, the poem argues that these opposites, good versus bad, are not natural. They are actually created by the human mind. Because of this, they lead to pain and unhappiness. So, overall, the poem criticizes organized religion, suggesting that its strict beliefs cause suffering and they should be questioned. With this, we begin with the analysis of the first stanza. Pity would be no more if we did not make somebody poor, and mercy no more could be if all were as happy as we. So, in this poem, Blake essentially summarizes human nature. More specifically, he criticizes what he sees as one of the root causes of humanity's suffering, the corruption and hypocrisy of organized religion. Blake was particularly critical of the Church of England, which was England's dominant religion during his era. The speaker begins with the pointed observation: pity would be no more if we did not make somebody poor. So, in the Christian tradition, pity, the mix of sorrow and compassion one feels when confronted with another's suffering, is considered a Christian virtue. Yet, the speaker's statement suggests that pity can only exist in response to poverty. If the world were more equitable, there would be no need of it. In this way, organized religions like Christianity need poverty and suffering actually to exist so that believers can prove their virtuousness. The speaker then follows this statement with a parallel claim. Kya? And mercy no more could be if all were as happy as we. So the repetition of no more and if and parallelism, bridging the poem's first two sentences, emphasize that both are illustrating the same idea. Yani ke we can only show mercy to those we have the power to punish. If everyone had equal access to the same resources, everyone would be happy, and there would be no reason for either punishment or leniency. So, by considering pity and mercy virtues, the church ensures that inequality will continue. And you will find M alliteration over here. In this lesson, inshallah, we'll be going through the literary devices with the analysis. So later on, there won't be as much detail given for the literary devices. All the detail, line by line, for the literary devices is going to begin given stanza by stanza. So you will find M alliteration over here, जैसे कि more, make, mercy, more. These emphasizes The alliteration emphasizes these opening lines, making them more forceful and memorable. Now we move on to the second stanza. And mutual fear brings peace till the selfish loves increase. Then cruelty knits a snare and spreads his baits with care. So in the second stanza, the speaker elaborates on his summary of humanity, जो कि उसने पहले stanza में बताई है. He claims that in the world as we know it, only mutual fear keeps people from fighting each other. एटलीस्ट अब अमेरिका चाइना पे क्यों नहीं अटैक करता? क्योंकि दे नो दैट चाइना इज पावरफुल. ओके, सो इट इज ओनली म्यूचुअल फियर दैट कीप्स पीपल फ्रॉम फाइटिंग ईच अदर, at least until their selfish loves, self-interested desires. Selfish loves क्या है? Their own desires, जिसके अंदर उनका अपना इंटरेस्ट है, drive them to break the peace. This claim suggests that peace born of fear isn't actually peace. It is just a temporary break from conflict. जैसे ही किसी को किसी और पे ज्यादा पावर हासिल होगी, he is going to break that peace. So Blake suggests that ideas like peace and love are not always genuine. They can sometimes be fake or forced. He believes they lose their true value when they are imposed by religious institutions instead of coming naturally from real human feelings. All these false ideas of goodness create the perfect conditions for cruelty to grow. The speaker presents cruelty as if it were a clever and cunning person. देखो ये personification है, आगे नहीं बताऊंगा मैं. तो cruelty has been presented as a clever and cunning person. Then cruelty क्या करती है या क्या करता है? Knits a snare, a trap, and spreads his baits with care. So in context, this description implies that organized hierarchical religion is a snare or a trap which lures in its followers and cruelly manipulates them. You will find sibilance over here as well. The hissing sibilance of this stanza. कौन सा? Brings, peace, selfish, loves, increase, knits, snare, spreads, his baits. So this hissing sibilance evokes the snaky slyness and cunningness of the church, which knowingly exploits people to its own ends. Notice too the repetition, another literary device of and mutual fear and spreads his baits, or at the start of lines 5 and 8. This word falls at the start of many lines in the poem and adds to the momentum and urgency of Blake's language. That momentum, in turn, evokes the way religions gain grip and power through a kind of chain reaction. One thing happens, and then another, and so on. तो इस तरीके से एंड क्या बन गया? एनाफोरा बन गया, अनदर लिटरेरी डिवाइस. सो एंड एनाफोरा, इट आल्सो अपीयर्स इन सम इंग्लिश ट्रांसलेशंस ऑफ द बाइबल. Example, the King James Version. So it adds to the poem's preachly tone. Okay. So in a way, it's trying to suggest that कि इसी तरीके से the churches preach. Again, Blake is an independent figure, preaching in favor of certain Christian like values, but against the church itself. तो Christianity की तो favor कर रहा है, church के against जा रहा है. He is not against peace, but he is against peace which is imposed through fear. In the same manner, he is not against Christianity, but he is against church, the way it imposes Christianity rules. Okay. With this, we move on to the third stanza. क्या है? He sits down with the holy fears and waters the ground with tears. Then humility takes its root underneath his foot. So lines 9 till 12, यानी कि जो third stanza, elaborate on the small allegory, another literary device, which is begun in the previous line. ओके, यानी कि हर चीज क्या है? एक रिप्रेजेंटेशन है किसी ने, जैसे कि क्रूअल क्या है? वो अपना ये चर्च है. ओके ना? अंडरस्टूड. So, the speaker continues to personify cruelty as a male figure and describes him as only holy superficially. So he sits down, he con cruelty, sits down with holy fears, and waters the ground with tears. Then humility takes its root underneath his foot. So this image suggests that the leaders of religious institutions are putting on a show for their followers. Their teachings and rituals are meant to inspire fear and awe, and they shed insincere tears to convince the congregation that they are genuine arbitrators, mediators between God and humankind. Okay, so watering the ground with tears might also suggest that they use the threat of suffering, example, punishment in hell or expulsion from the church for any sin, to instill humility in their followers. So, in a religious context, humility involves submitting to God. So, when the speaker wants that humility takes its root underneath cruelty's foot, he is implying that organized religion actually wants people to submit to the church's authority, not God's authority. The church has no power without people believing that it is their only path to God. And by teaching mindless obedience to their doctrines, religious institutions create a power imbalance that leads to abuse and suffering, often the same kind of suffering they claim to alleviate. Next stanza. Soon spreads the dismal shade of mystery over his head, and caterpillar and fly feed on the mystery. So, once the church's foundation or root system is in place, corruption grows into a towering metaphorical tree. It soon spreads the dismal shade of mystery over the head of the figure who planted it. So, this mystery is not natural. It is created and it comes from cruelty. So, religious leaders keep things unclear on purpose because mystery helps them stay powerful. They act as if they have special hidden knowledge about God and offer themselves as the only way for people to connect with them. In this way, the caterpillar and fly, which are the metaphors for the clergy, feed off this mystery like parasites. They benefit from the people's confusion. As long as people feel lost without the church, they continue to support its power and authority. The repetition of the word mystery in lines 14 and 16 emphasizes the importance of lies and illusion in this power structure. The tree metaphor is powerful because a tree's branches reflect its roots. But while we can see the branches, the roots remain hidden. In the same way, followers of religion only see the outer parts of religious institutions, not how they really work inside. If the roots of the system are corrupt, then everything that grows from it must also be bad. So, the shade of this tree is not comforting or peaceful, it is dark and gloomy, representing evil or ignorance. So, this religious mystery does not help or comfort people, it only keeps them unaware and in the dark. With this, we move on to the fifth stanza, and it bears the fruit of deceit, ruddy and sweet to eat, and the raven his nest has made in its thickest shade. This stanza continues to develop on the extended metaphor comparing organized religion to a tree. The speaker describes the fruit of this tree as a ruddy, yani ke reddish or a healthy looking fruit, and sweet to eat. The internal rhyme between sweet and eat emphasizes the attractiveness of the organized religion and the influence it holds over many people. The church provides a sense of goodness to its followers. Their devotion and piety makes them feel good about themselves. Yet the speaker believes its fruit or output is actually deceitful, yani ke intentionally misleading. While people are distracted by church's glossy illusions, a raven makes himself at home in the thickest shade of the tree, symbolizing death and wickedness. The shadowy raven suggests that the church's public face and its real aims have nothing in common, and that unquestioning obedience to religious philosophy has devastating effects. History is littered with examples of religious hypocrisy and corruption, and the poem suggests that this is an inevitable result of the religious institutions wielding so much power. Of course, the tree's sweet fruit also serves as an allusion to the biblical story of Adam and Eve and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. According to the Bible, ये allusion भी मैं अभी से बता रहा हूँ, बाद में नहीं बताऊंगा. According to the Bible, God created Adam and Eve and let them roam free in the sublime Garden of Eden. They were allowed to eat from any tree except the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but the devil tempted Eve, who tasted the fruit of this tree and shared it with Adam. The fruit made them conscious of their own nakedness, and for the first time they felt shame. This event introduced sin into the world, and in punishment, God cast Adam and Eve out of the garden. So the poem uses this allusion to criticize strict religious rules. It suggests that evil does not come from breaking rules, but from creating these rigid rules in the first place. तो भाईजान माशाल्लाह से ब्लेक साहब क्या कह रहे हैं कि अल्लाह मियाँ ने वो रूल ही क्यों बनाया स्ट्रिक्ट भाई. रूल ही नहीं बनाना चाहिए था स्ट्रिक्ट. अल्लाह हिफाजत फरमाए. Okay, ji. So, next stanza, which is the last one. The gods of the earth and sea sought through nature to find this tree, but their search was all in vain. There grows one in the human brain. So the poem's final stanza brings his extended metaphor and its allegory to a close. According to the speaker, the gods of the earth and sea have sought through nature for the metaphorical tree, which has been created by the religion, only to find their efforts all in vain. यानी कि जो असल गॉड है अकॉर्डिंग टू ब्लेक साहब, उन्होंने इस ट्री को एक्चुअली ढूंढा दुनिया के अंदर. ओके ना, बट ही कुडंट फाइंड. ओके, यानी कि ही इज ट्राइंग टू सजेस्ट दैट दिस स्टोरी हैज बीन क्रिएटेड बाय द रिलीजियस इंस्टीट्यूशंस एंड दिस इज नॉट ट्रू. सो और क्या कह रहा है, द ट्री एग्जिस्ट नोवेयर इन नेचर बट ओनली इन द ह्यूमन ब्रेन. सो इन अदर वर्ड्स, देयर इज नथिंग ऑर्गेनिक अबाउट ऑर्गेनाइज्ड रिलीजन or strict petty moral rules. These things are designed by human beings not to make the world a better place but to dominate other people and profit from their misfortune. The phrase gods of the earth and sea suggests that nature itself has a divine presence, yani ke divinity, god, deity. William Blake was deeply spiritual, so he's not against spirituality or morality or Christianity. Instead, he is criticizing religious institutions that treat people like machines. The Church of England and many other religions have imposed strict rules and discouraged people from questioning them. The poem suggests that people do not need such rigid black and white rules to become truly good. In fact, real goodness cannot grow in a system that is harsh, controlling, and demands complete obedience. At the same time, the poem says that these harmful ideas come from the human brain. This means people themselves create these systems, but it also means they have the power to change them. So if the human mind can create cruelty, it can also imagine and build a better, kinder world. With this, we move on to the symbol. The symbol that is present in this poem is the raven. Ravens often symbolize evil and death, and this is certainly true in the human abstract. The speaker describes this bird making his nest in the thickest shade of the metaphorical religion tree. यानी कि religion tree के थ्रू क्या दिख रहा है, क्या बिक रहा है, क्या फैलाया जा रहा है, evil फैलाया जा रहा है. The shade of this tree isn't refreshing, but dismal. It leaves people in the darkness of mystery and ignorance. And while the tree's fruit appears healthy and tastes sweet, its virtues are illusions. All this suggests that rather than improving people's lives, organized religion breeds deceit. It overshadows truth and creates vast suffering. That the raven builds its nest in this setting implies that evil readily finds a home under the obscuring mysticism of religion. Cruelty is the only thing that thrives where strict rules about morality prevail. prevail. Now we move on to the theme. The first theme is organized religion and suffering. So in the poem actually argues that ideas of good and evil are not natural, but they are created by humans. Qualities like pity, mercy, and peace only exist because negative conditions like poverty, fear, and inequality exist. So by creating virtue, humans also create vice. The poem uses the image of a tree, which is an allusion to the biblical tree of knowledge, to show that this system of morality does not exist in nature but grows in the human brain. This suggests that organized religion is a human invention, not a divine truth, and it creates suffering instead of solving it. Blake also shows how religion allows cruelty to grow, hiding behind false goodness and hypocrisy. Religious leaders benefit from this system, keeping people confused and dependent. Overall, the poem criticizes organized religion as unnatural and harmful, arguing that it spreads inequality, fear, and suffering rather than true goodness. The next theme is humanity and the power of ideas. The poem shows both the danger and power of human thinking. Blake warns that abstract ideas like morality can trap people, spreading like a tree that covers the world in confusion and suffering. These ideas created from fear and selfishness can grow powerful and even give authority to people like the clergy. However, the poem also suggests hope. Since these harmful ideas come from the human mind, people also have the ability to question and change them. In other words, the same power that creates false beliefs can also free people from them if they challenge those beliefs. अब हम आ जाते हैं लिटरेरी डिवाइसेस पे। पहली लिटरेरी डिवाइस क्या है? एक्सटेंडेड मेटाफर। सही ना? So the poem uses the extended metaphor of the tree to describe the spread of human cruelty in the form of organized religion. ये सब कुछ हम poem के अंदर वैसे ही कर चुके हैं. Next is personification. Okay, so cruelty is shown as a person who tricks people using fake religious behavior. He pretends to be holy and emotional to attract followers, but actually wants power and control over them, not true devotion. फिर हम आ जाते हैं allusion. Allusion के बारे में बहुत कुछ बताया है, फिर से बता देते हैं. The poem's extended metaphor about a tree alludes to the Bible, specifically the tree of the knowledge and good and evil. Since the poem concerns organized religion and morality, and since Blake was outspoken in his criticism of the Church of England, it is safe to assume this Christian reference is deliberate. क्यों? That this metaphorical tree exists only in the human brain further suggests that all of our stories about good and evil, including those in the Bible, were created by people and thus should be approached with a healthy dose of skepticism. Next little device is repetition. Repetition helps create rhythm and emphasis throughout the poem. जैसे कि first stanza को ले लो. For example, it uses both repetition and parallel structure. Pity would be no more if. फिर आगे भी no more आ रहा है and if आ रहा है. फिर अब हम आ जाते हैं alliteration पे. ओके जी. सो एलिट्रेशन इसके साथ साथ दूसरे साउंड इफेक्ट्स लाइक सिबिलेंस एंड एसोनेंस मेक्स द पोयम मोर लिरिकल, इंटेंस एंड मेमोरेबल. For example, notice how M alliteration intensifies the language of the first three lines, जो कि हमने पहले स्टैंजा में पढ़ा था. No more, make and mercy and more. ओके ना? सो और दूसरे स्टैंजा के अंदर C alliteration है. It draws a strong connection between cruelty and care with which it is devised. यानी कि cruelty has been devised, has been uh, made with such care ताकि लोग उससे डरें. So the worst cruelty Blake suggests here is not spontaneous but it is cunning and deliberate, जो कि clergymen ने, जो कि churches ने as institutions ने पैदा कर दी है. There is also lots of sibilance in this stanza. Okay ना? जैसे कि brings peace, selfish loves increase, cruelty knits a snare, spreads his baits with care. So the soft and snaky sounds convey the sneakiness and the cunningness with which religious institutions often operate, luring people in while obscuring and hiding the real motives. The sibilance in stanza 4 soon spreads dismal mystery has a similar effect, again evoking the snaky deceit of the clergy. The poem's alliteration can create an emotional charge too. Okay, in lines 15 and instant in 17, for example, जो किसे कहते हैं ना फ्रिक्शन वाले साउंड्स हैं, fly, feeds, fruit, they help underline Blake's intense anger and disgust. अब हम आ जाते हैं फॉर्म मीटर और राइम स्कीम पे. सो द पोयम कंसिस्ट ऑफ 6 quatrains or 4 line stanzas written in irregular meter. Each stanza can be further divided into 2 couplets since the poem follows a strict double A double B rhyme scheme. Okay, each couplet is syntactically self contained. The second line of each stanza ends in a semicolon, dividing the first 2 lines of the stanza from the last 2 lines. As a result, the speaker's ideas are parceled out in short, clear bursts of 2 verses, 2 lines. This structure gives the poem its distinctive measured pace and helps readers follow its assertions more easily. दो दो लाइनों के अंदर सारी बात कर रहा है आहिस्ता आहिस्ता, ताकि सबको एक एक करके आसानी से सब चीजें समझ में आ जाएं. अब हम आ जाते हैं मीटर पे. द पोयम्स मीटर इज इरेगुलर. सम ऑफ इट्स लाइंस आर रिटन इन iambic trimeter, यानी कि दे कंटेन 6 syllables एंड फॉलो एन अनस्ट्रेस स्ट्रेस पैटर्न, जैसे कि डरडम. द सेकेंड स्टैंजा जनरली फॉलोज दिस पैटर्न. देखें, अनस्ट्रेस स्ट्रेस, अनस्ट्रेस स्ट्रेस, अनस्ट्रेस स्ट्रेस, और कितने फीट हैं? 3 फीट है, यानी कि 6 लेवल्स हैं. सिवाय इस दूसरी लाइन के, द ओनली वन इरेगुलरिटी इज इन लाइन 6, जो कि ये वाली है, विच बिगिंस विद एन एनएपएस. एनएपएस क्या होता है? टू अनस्ट्रेस्ड. ओके ना, एन वन स्ट्रेस. इट इज ओनली बिगिनिंग विद दिस. ओके. सो बट अदर पार्ट्स ऑफ द पोयम आर फार लेस रेगुलर. ये जितनी भी रेगुलरिटी थी इधर थी, इसके अलावा बाकी सारी के अंदर इरेगुलरिटी है. जैसे कि इफ वी टेक अ लुक एट द फर्स्ट 4 लाइंस, तो देखें, दिस इज कंप्लीटली इरेगुलर. कोई पैटर्न नहीं है जिसके थ्रू स्ट्रेसेस आ रहे हों. ओके ना. सो पिटी वुड बी नो मोर इफ वी डिड नॉट make somebody poor. ये सारे. So here there is a mixture of iams, anapes and trochees. Okay ना. ट्रोकी क्या होते हैं? पहले स्ट्रेस फिर अनस्ट्रेस. आयम क्या होता है? अनस्ट्रेस स्ट्रेस. और अपना ये क्या कहते हैं, एनापेस क्या होता है? डबल अनस्ट्रेस फिर स्ट्रेस. ओके. सो देर आर टिपिकली 3 accented syllables पर लाइन. हर स्लिप कि आप लाइन के अंदर 3 कम से कम आप जो है स्ट्रेस वाले सिलेबल जरूर देखेंगे. ओके ना. इवन एज द रिदम एंड syllable काउंट वेरीज, सो द पोएम्स meter could be described as 3 beat accentual meter, but even this pattern is approximate since the second line here contains 4 accentuated syllables. जैसे कि ये रहा 1 2 3, जैसे कि ये 1 2 3 4. ओके ना. ओके. इसी तरीके से लाइन 22 के अंदर भी इसी तरह है. सो द पोयम्स इरेगुलर मीटर सीम्स टू रिफ्लेक्ट ब्लेक्स रिजेक्शन ऑफ रिजिड रिलीजियस डॉक्ट्राइन. इन ऑर्डर टू रेजिस्ट द स्नेर, यानी कि ट्रैप of this kind of thinking, one has to be flexible and alert, and the poem's shifting rhythms help evoke this flexibility. अब हम आ जाते हैं राइम स्कीम पे. The poem follows a basic double A double B rhyme scheme with each quatrain consisting of 2 couplets. The simplicity of this scheme gives the poem an almost childlike nursery rhyme like quality, which makes its claim about organized religion feel more memorable and direct. In some cases, the couplets also highlight conceptual or thematic links between rhyme words, such as the connection between fears and tears, meaning pious awe and sorrow in lines 9 to 10. So, most of the end rhymes are exact, जैसे कि more, poor, जैसे कि B and V. But there are a series of slant rhymes in the middle of poem, जैसे कि आप lines 11 and to 16 में देखेंगे. Root और foot, ठीक है, ये स्लांट राइम है. शेड और हेड, स्लांट राइम है. फ्लाई और मिस्ट्री, स्लांट राइम है. दीज imperfect rhymes coincide with the passage about religion's false humility and deceptive mystery, so they might subtly reflect the imperfections of the religious institutions itself. Okay, so with this we end this lesson. I hope you would have understood. Feel free to ask questions.